first for introductions, so you'll be first for the first question. Sure. You'll be first for the second question, and so forth. And I'll lose track, and you'll help me.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold the microphone close to your mouth. Hold the microphone close to your mouth. Okay. Because you can't hear it.
So I think, Rick, I don't think this one's working. I don't think it's, yeah, it's green. Yeah. Try it now. Okay. So sometimes I wonder if I'm a little bit strange because 2 of these in 1 week, like I just feel like this is like the best week ever. Like this is like we get to hang out a couple times this week and like I'll talk about how we can make our communities better. So, you know, if I'm strange, oh, come on folks. I'm a teacher. So if I'm strange, I'm in good company with other strange folks who want to do politics. Welcome to the 3rd event in Muncie Resists 2026 primary series. My name is Sara Vitale, and I am the chair of Muncie Resists. So I feel a little bit like a broken record. But for any new people watching or new people here, we are a grassroots, indivisible organization founded in 2017 and dedicated to promoting a more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future for all people. So on the screen, there are some things going around, and on the next slide is going to show you some of our upcoming events. Please note our 3rd No Kings protest is on the 28th, and so I hope to see you on the bridge. And you can come this Saturday to Democratic headquarters at from 11 to 1 to help make a really cool sign. So you're welcome to come and join us, make some signs, have some snacks. Our primary series this year has been organized by our Electoral Advocacy Committee with Peggy Lewis, Melinda Messinio, and Jennifer Rice Snow at the helm. So let's give a big round of applause to them. There's Melinda. Jen is out at the table. Please join me. Oh, we already just did that. I'd also like to thank all of the volunteers who are here tonight, as well as our endorsement team. Special thanks to the Unitarian Universalist Church for this amazing space. And thanks to Rick Dwanger for making us sound and look good. So a note on endorsement. Muncie Resist began endorsing candidates in 2023. We invite candidates to fill out a survey, the answers to which you can find on our website, and attend a panel. Then our endorsement team considers their responses in both settings, and as well as previous public statements and perhaps actions while in office. Note that candidates have to request endorsement, and providing responses to the survey or participating in the panels does not mean a candidate has necessarily requested our endorsement. A candidate may do any combination of these 3 things: complete the survey, attend a forum, and seek endorsement. We started the primary series well before 2023, though. Our first was in 2018, and we've done it during every primary election cycle since. And Facebook has been giving me a lot of memories, a lot of pictures from all of the previous primary series. And so this has been a labor of love, and we've really enjoyed doing this over the last several years. We do it because we believe that the electorate deserves to be informed. Turnout, is so much lower during the primaries, even though the decisions made now are often the most important. We're deciding who's going to be on our ballot in November. But I don't need to convince all of you that the primaries are important. You're here, you're watching on Facebook, you're already invested. The task then is to bring in more people, and all of us have a responsibility to work on that. Candidates, you're the big players here. You need to give people a reason to get excited, a reason to want to join your team, a reason to think the community would be better if you were elected, a reason to get engaged in politics. A reason really to see politics for what it truly is and should be, the practice of deliberating with others about how we can have the best communities possible. Attendees, let's tell to our friends and families. Let's invite them to go vote with us. Even better, let's tell them about the forum that we just went to later on. Share the video with them. Invite them to the next one on March 30th. I just think that what we need to be doing now is thinking about, so in organizing, they talk about the ladder of engagement, and they talk about moving up a step. So what step have you been on the ladder of engagement? What have you been doing? And so how can you add something to it, take it to a next step, dedicate a little bit more time or a little bit more energy? This doesn't mean changing your whole life. This means thinking about, okay, I've done this for a while. What can I do to contribute more to promoting democracy in my community? So, on to the plan for the evening. Candidates will each have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Then I will ask them your questions. You've all received note cards, and if you raise your hand, a Muncie Resist volunteer will bring you more. You may submit questions throughout the panel. Just raise it in the air, and a volunteer will come to collect it. Good questions are civil. They address the qualifications or experience of the candidate, or they focus on policy. They're specific, eliciting a yes or no answer and a follow-up explanation. Questions may be asked of individual candidates or candidates for a specific office, but other candidates will also have the opportunity to speak on the topic if they choose. If you reference a fact or a statistic in your question, please cite a source so a Muncie Resist volunteer can look it up. Questions will be eliminated if they're demeaning or contain uncited facts or statistics. The volunteers are going to consolidate these and bring them up to me. We try to ask questions in order of the popularity of the topic. So if we get a bunch of questions on one thing, that's what we're going to ask about first. Also, I reserve the right to ask follow-up questions. So some of the questions might not be just from the audience, they could be from yours truly. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. If a candidate is addressed directly by another candidate, that candidate may have 30 seconds to respond. So, without any further delay, I invite our candidates to introduce themselves. Andrew?
Good evening. I want to start off and thank Muncie Resist. That this type of coordination and putting things together isn't easy to do. And so I'm grateful to be affiliated with Muncie Resist. I'm a Muncie Resist member, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight. It's good to be in this space because I know many of you. I've known many of you for a few decades probably. And I hope you know that I care deeply about our community and about our county and about Indiana. If you've known me for a while, you also know that I have a very strong sense of urgency about me. And that's what got me in this particular race. I was very concerned in 2025 with the property tax reform bill and how negative that is. It's, all of us receive some minor benefit from that as property owners, and businesses receive large benefit, but it's to the detriment of our public education institutions. It's to the detriment of, as well as to our municipalities and our local units of government. They will struggle over the next several years. I was concerned about the unlawful dissolution of the Union School Corporation that J.D. Prescott and Scott Alexander were part of when they buried that in the property tax reform bill. I was very concerned about redistricting, and that our representative, our Senator Scott Alexander, decided that he would join one of 19 members in the minority to support that effort. So like you, I'm concerned, I have angst at times, but I have hope. And I know that it can be better. And that's why I decided to get in this particular race. My campaign is focused on affordability. It's focused on education and what I would call next generation opportunities, which I am delighted to talk more about tonight with all of you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Pearson. I'm going to stay seated because I'm 5 days on an antibiotic and I don't want to start coughing by moving around. So I know that none of you have probably heard of me or know why I am sitting here. Sara and Muncie Resists were nice enough to invite me, although I'm unable to primary. I'm running as an independent candidate within the brand new Socialist Party of Indiana. If that scares you in any way, feel free to ask questions, but it's, I promise you it's okay. My background is I actually have not lived in Indiana my whole life. I moved here in 2023 for a full-time teaching job at a local university, and of course my opinions do not reflect my university in any way. As a matter of fact, they don't like me very much. My background is that I grew up very poor, the single mother. I grew up in women's shelters. I suffered from addiction in my 20s and was the benefit of grants and subsidized treatment. I got clean and sober. I went back to college at 28. Oh, thanks. I mean, thank you. That's okay. Got all my degrees, moved out here for a job in a brand new department, and then very quickly, after the last presidential election, my job was almost completely eradicated due to state and legislative bills that were passed. So I'm a professor, I'm a published author, I'm a scrapper, and I live on the south side of Muncie. And my priorities are mobilizing and galvanizing non-voters and the poor and working class exclusively. I'm also running, I don't expect to win, nor do I actually want to win. I'm hoping to create a new ballot line in Indiana. And that is time. Thank you.
I'm John Bartlett. This is my third time running for District 33 in the State House. Most of you know me and know where that is, but that's like between Muncie and the Ohio line, and it's all are part of Henry, Randolph, Jay, Blackford, and Delaware counties. So, third time running. Why am I running again? Why am I putting myself through this again? Well, this is my home. This has always been my home. My roots go back here. My ancestors moved here almost 200 years ago. And I live on my grandparents' farm that they purchased almost 75 years ago. So living on my grandparents' farm, I now have a grandson. He's getting ready to turn 2. And with my grandson, I look at him and it's like, I want him to have the opportunity so that he can choose to live on that farm that his great-great-grandparents bought. And the way things are in our community right now, in our area, is he's not going to have that opportunity because of all of the things that have happened with our economy, with our jobs leaving. And I want to improve. I want to improve that by attracting businesses here with improved education, with improved health care, with improved roads and broadband internet. I want all of those things here. And the other thing is that last year during that during the session down there was a senator who said that in a committee meeting, he said, if you choose to live in a rural area, then you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that choice, and you're not going to have as good a health care services. You're not going to have as good a job opportunities. And I'm sorry, to me, that translates to they don't give a crap about us. And when they don't give a crap about us, we get things like a property tax bill that only gives businesses property tax cuts. We get data center bills that are harmful to us, and I hope we get to talk about more of those things.
Hi, I'm Sara Gullion, and I'm running for state representative in District 34. I'm going to follow in Representative Sue Arrington's footsteps, hopefully. I have lived in Muncie for 26 years now, and I am a graduate of Ball State University in their journalism program. I grew up in a small town in Hendricks County, Danville, Indiana, and I worked in Detroit and Indianapolis in public relations and communications. I currently work for a local law firm. I've been there for about 14 years. And now my son's at Allstate, and he's a graduate of Muncie schools, so I think I can call myself a local now. I am in my third year of Muncie City Council also, and I'm really proud of a lot that we've been able to do. I have focused on trying to make local government more transparent, obviously assisting my constituents with their needs, and encouraging more diverse voices to become involved. I am also very aware now of the limits of what we can do at the city level, whether it's city council or the administration, and that's a big reason that I want to go to the state level. Issues that we have here like wages, education, housing, really need to be fixed at the state level. We need to raise the minimum wage. We need to make sure that a full day's work means that you can have an affordable life. 22 other states are doing that this year, still not Indiana. We also need to focus on renters' rights, both in my city council job and also in my day-to-day job in a law firm. We hear a lot of stories about rentals. We have 76% of our renters in this district spend more than half of their paycheck on their rent. And we're talking about some, yes. So it's my time. We've got more things to talk about. So.
Hi, my name is Phil Gift. I'm running for Indiana House District 35, an incredibly gerrymandered district, by the way. I could tell you all about it and its boundaries, but that'd take up all of my time. Not going to do it. I know most of you out here already. So I know you're all a pretty sharp breed of cat that's here. And so what I want to tell you is I'm running for one sole reason. I am sick and tired of people that say government doesn't work. They run for office with all kinds of money from all over Hell's Half Acre, and then they get elected and they get in office and they make damn sure government doesn't work. And that needs to change. We've seen a legislature that is more concentrated on concentrating their own power and abusing that power to benefit corporations and just see how much they can screw over people that are out there working for a living. They don't give them adequate health care. We don't have access to adequate health care, housing, or even a decent wage because Indiana's refused to increase their minimum wage from what, $7.35, whatever, some pathetic amount. So anyway, and I am running against a person who did vote to even further gerrymander an already incredibly gerrymandered state, and so she did that. And when that didn't work, she proposed House Resolution 2, which basically took away all of the elected office in the counties of like surveyor, coroner, some of the offices that are usually run through election in the counties. So anyway, that's it. I'm running to make a government work, and I'm working for middle class people so that we feel like we stand a chance. And so, thank you.
All right, our first question, should Indiana, and this is going to start with you, Tanya, should Indiana raise its minimum wage and tie it to inflation?
Indiana should raise the minimum wage. And actually, if adjusted for inflation, the minimum wage, and people say that's radical, it should be closer to $30 an hour. I'll leave it at that so we have time for everybody. That answers the question, right? See? Okay, not a politician. Yes.
So the 33rd district, all 5 counties in the 33rd district are among the highest in the state of the poverty wages, people living in poverty. We absolutely need to raise the minimum wage. When you're talking about 20 to 25% of your people living under the poverty line, you increase the costs of things like Medicaid. You hear the Republicans constantly saying, we need to get people off of Medicaid. We need to quit paying people off the government. Well, The way you do that is you increase their wages. And to do that, we need to be attracting businesses here. We need to be, and we'll get into that hopefully on some other questions, but when we are like among the lowest 5 states for the percentage of our population that has a college degree, and we're among the lowest 10 that has a high school degree. Businesses, you can give them all the tax breaks that they want, but you're not going to attract them here if they have an undereducated workforce to select from.
Yes, we do need to raise the minimum wage. It's been the same since 2009. That's almost 30 years. I was thinking of this earlier. I was like, 20 years. And I was like, no. It was 30 years almost. So we need to do that. We also need to raise the sub-minimum wage, which is what we pay for servers, people who are in the tip-based economy. That's at $2.14. The minimum wage at $7.25. Yes. And we do need to tie that to inflation so that we don't have to keep going back and raising it every few years.
Yeah, of course we need to raise the minimum wage. At least double it. And when we say a minimum wage, we should mean a minimum wage, not if you wait on tables or you do something else. I can't believe anybody, with anything approaching a conscience would pull that stuff. But it's been going on for years. It needs to go away. Also, and I certainly favor indexing. And this shows you how slow the legislators are right now. They need to index that. If you index it, you don't have people bugging you about it forever. They were smart. They did that with Social Security years ago. But these Anyaks right now, these Republicans in the House, they don't have enough sense to even do that. So anyway.
Man, when I waited tables in college, I made $2.04 an hour. That sub-minimum wage. Thank you, Sarah. You're absolutely right about that. I am for the raising of the minimum wage. I think it needs to be done sympathetically. I don't think it needs to be overnight. When I say overnight, we need to be quick and get on it. But I think we need to have a rate schedule on the raising the minimum wage, and we need to do it sympathetically for the employer side and for those who will benefit from it. Thank you.
Okay, happy clappers. I'm not going to ask that you never clap. If the spirit moves you and there's a moment and you want to respond through clapping, you are obviously free to do that, but let's not clap after every response because we want to give them the opportunity to answer as many questions as possible. So the questions are flying in, and one question that's been asked at least 3 times is about the Republican supermajority. So none of you is running as a Republican, and if you get to work in the State House or Senate, there may still be a Republican supermajority. And if it still exists, there are a few ways this question is phrased. How will you make sure the voices of your constituents are heard? Is there something you could hope to pass that Republicans would go for? How can you be effective? So any one of those approaches to this question of, what would you do if you get the gig and remains a Republican supermajority? John, this starts with you.
All right, so the importance of breaking the supermajority is that you can, if all the Democrats decide to walk out, then they break quorum and the legislature has to stop. They did this back in, I believe it was 2011-ish, back when they passed they had the bill to break the union's abilities, and pass the right to work for less bill. So that's the importance of breaking the supermajority. Now, what would I do? I've known Sue for several years, and I really, really appreciate what Sue did. A couple years ago, maybe it was last year, with her bill, she had a measure, and what she did was, I think was it on rape? Was it? I can't remember, rape laws or something like that. But what she did was she worked with someone else to get that inserted into the bill, and got a Republican to author it. So that's what you should do.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be at least in the minority, obviously. But if there's not a super minority, then yeah, we have more opportunities on committees and those kind of things. As far as something that I think is a possibility that we might get some bipartisan support for, everyone's talking about utility bills increasing and trying to lower those. I don't possibly to be able to pass something to remove taxes on the utilities on our bills. That's something that might be possible bipartisan.
I don't know what you do about it. Really, to be honest, we've just been powerless. Democrats have been powerless in the legislature for virtually, I don't know what the percentage is, but a high percentage of the bills, because they're accountable to no one. And then when they go ahead and do the gerrymandering, they pick the voters. The voters no longer pick them. And that's pure power. And pure power corrupts. So I guess what you need to do is give us all a bunch of money and just hope, we are able to be successful. And I see some of you kind of laughing when I say the money, but I'm going to tell you, these guys get money. They will give my opponent any amount of money they have to see that she gets elected. And to go back, I don't know if I'm running out of time here or not, but the Republicans indicated Red State Initiative. This is many years ago. I don't know exactly how many years ago. But what happened was, I'm out of time. But they were very effective. So we need to kind of get that mentality going here, too.
All right. You've often, those who know me, there's a phrase that I use quite a bit. You don't break a fever with cold water. That doesn't mean I would be timid going into the legislature. And we are hopeful that we will be less than the minority after this year. I would propose some legislation that would benefit the administrations of school corporations and teachers. As I talk to superintendents, especially in Randolph County, I won't mention names, there's 5 school corporations in Randolph County. There are some things that can be done, and I won't go into because I don't have time, but that meet the other side of the aisle in a space where we can do good work together. And that way, as we go forward and propose more proactive, more progressive ideals and such, that there's a trust build up between us. So I think it's very important to go in and propose things that can be done together and then work from there.
Don't forget me, opponent. So what Christian nationalists have done really well over the course of 40 years is organize effectively, infiltrate higher education, infiltrate the Supreme Court, and infiltrate state legislators. So I think that we could break up the supermajority by doing something, by mobilizing a viable third party, minority parties. I'm a proponent of ranked choice voting. I would never work with a Christian nationalist. There are certain things that I find that I will not compromise on, and people like our governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, they're decimating the educational system. They are making it more difficult for people to vote, and those aren't people that I can compromise with in any way. And you with your sign.
The timekeepers are in front, and they're strict. All right. So the next question will start with Sara. How would you vote to use any state monetary surplus? And so this person wrote down some ideas: mandatory kindergarten, free preschool, return money to taxpayers, other things. Why?
Good question. We should have, a $5 billion surplus, I think, by next year. We could do a lot with that, couldn't we? If I'm choosing among those that are listed, I'm going to say pre-K. I think that helps a lot with the child care issue that we've got going on right now, all those vouchers that have been removed with 31,000 kids who no longer have child care. places to go. I think if we do pre-K, it's universal pre-K, free pre-K, then obviously it gives our kids a stronger foundation for education, and then, like I say, it can help with that child care. Other things that I'd like to see it used for would be some of this unhoused issue, right? We're having, they've just passed something to criminalize homelessness, basically. And I think that we need to invest in shelters and in tiny homes, those kind of things, in order to make sure that we're not criminalizing and wasting money.
Yeah, I'm with Sarah on that. My biggest issue, well, I got a lot of issues, but my biggest campaign issue is that we need to punch up our education in this state. It's a national embarrassment where Indiana stands on education, and we need to put it into public education. And instead of increasing that funding, all they've done is cut the funding. They like to brag. I got one of those mailers that, oh, I increased education 2%. Well, we had 3 or 4% inflation, so that's cutting public education. I wasn't even that good at math, but I figured that out pretty quick. So anyway, yeah, that's where I would spend any surplus funds, plow it right into education. Thank you.
I think that the state structural surplus and combined reserves are at $3.5 billion today, and hopefully they'll grow to $5 billion in the next year. But I would suggest, as I've talked again to school corporation administrators, that they pay a high premium for property and casualty insurance for their facilities, and putting a seed money in from maybe just a small amount of the reserve fund to seed a shared risk program for the monies. They spend an exorbitant amount of money on insurances, especially property and casualty insurance at school corporations. That if we had a shared risk pool throughout the state of Indiana, that's throughout Indiana, it would be beneficial. We do have that on a regional basis. There are school corporations that come together that do it here and there. But doing it universally, I think it'd be a good use of money, because over time we would save a tremendous amount of money to do better things in school.
And start. Okay. So with, I think a surplus, how should I say this articulately? I'm a history professor, so I always want to start at like the Revolutionary War era and just work our way up. But I'm a proponent of community-based solutions to most problems. So not even talking about divesting from policing or divesting from the carceral justice system. I live in a very impoverished, drug-addicted area. And I think that using $5 billion surplus and donating that to underserved areas and communities throughout the state, that could be used for free school lunches, after school activities and programs, and recovery-based programs like Recovery Cafe in Muncie, but community-based alternatives.
So before I mentioned I'm really concentrated on economic growth in our rural areas. And one of the 3 things that I think would really bring jobs back, the reason why businesses are not coming here and locating here, one of the 3 things is infrastructure. And when you look at rural county roads, the secondary roads, there was an estimate that came out in 2024. We are $2.5 billion in need of road repair in our rural counties. That's one place it could go. The other thing in infrastructure that we really need to be able to attract businesses here are we need fiber optic broadband internet stretched out in the country. That's going to have to be on a New Deal level project like we did with rural electrification in the 30s and the 40s. We've got to get rural broadband out there, and that's a lot of money, and that's what we could use it for.
All right. You should see this. It looks, there's so many questions on so many interesting topics. We'll start with Phil on this one. How, as a state legislator or senator, might you act to lessen the damage to the local economy stemming from the passage of Senate Enrolled Act 1, which is something that's already been brought up today? What specific measures can be taken?
Well, one thing is we could go back to the current or the previous structure and basically work from there. It's impossible to describe the level of hits that these communities have taken from, which is basically kind of the result of SB 1 and some other sneaky little legislation they did, which of course, by them having a supermajority, they can just do whatever they want. I'm not an expert on taxation. I'll be straight out with you. But anyway, what we need to do is whatever tax structure we have is that we make sure that we get our local communities funded. I saw Yorktown have to pass a wheel tax so they can keep their roads good, you know. And so, yeah, there are a lot of things we could do. I favor an income tax, by the way. I think an income tax, yet you'll hear more about later because I have time, but we'll talk about that, okay?
All right. I think short of the supermajority Republican legislature sobering up and making the patches that need to be made to the reforms to the reform bill, I think it's very difficult. There's a reality. We heard in the first forum from a number of county councilors say that they would like to not see taxes be raised. Taxes will be raised. You will see it. You will see local income taxes raised throughout this state by counties and by cities and by townships and by smaller secondary units of government. There is no other way for cities and communities like Delaware, Randolph, Winchester, Union City, Muncie to provide the services that they provide, the adequate amount of services that they provide now, which is tough, without raising the local income tax. That's just a fact. Public safety gobbles up the vast majority of our municipal monies. So that is a cold hard truth that the legislature put us in this position. It's a shifting of burden of taxes that needs to be reconciled.
Sorry, I know my time is starting. I'm an author and an introvert. So I have kind of a holistic answer for this one, because at this point in time today, I would like to not pay any federal taxes because I don't like where my federal tax dollars are going. I have absolutely no problem paying property tax, paying local taxes, if I could be assured that that money was going to my neighborhood kids, to their schools, if it was going to repaving the roads in I have swimming hole-sized potholes on my street. I think that this is an issue. I know no one wants to pay taxes, but I think we need to care about our community, and we need to care about each other, and we need to care about our kids and the next generation of Delaware and Randolph County residents, and that includes, unfortunately, paying some taxes.
First of all, whoever asked the question, thank you, because this is one of the most important questions we've got on property taxes. Unfortunately, a minute is not enough time to address this issue, and anybody wants to talk to me afterwards. I've studied property taxes for the last 3 years, and I can probably speak to it, and I'm still, like Phil, I'm not an expert on them. But the first thing I would do is repeal SEA 1. It has to be repealed. It gave way too much relief to businesses by eliminating the business personal property tax, which is the tax that they pay on their equipment, and it gave the people virtually no property tax relief on their homesteads and on their rental properties and farm ground and even farmers with the personal property tax. It gave them no relief whatsoever. And first of all, repeal it and replace it with something that actually addresses the problem with property taxes, which is the increased assessment values, which happened during COVID. And that's what we need to address, and I've got ideas on that too.
Repealing would be great, but I do believe that Andrew has a point that most municipalities are going to have to look hard at raising that that lit tax. And that is exactly what the legislature was doing, trying to push it off to municipalities. I know we've talked about it a lot at the city council level, and it's something that is probably going to come at the county level too. To John's point about the business personal property exemption, if you look at, so basically there was an 80,000 limit and they took it up to $1 million. So basically, you know, the highest, most expensive homes get a $300. So like if you have a $400,000 home, you get a $300 tax credit. If you are a business with $400,000 in personal property, you get $12,000. So we need to at least get rid of that part.
All right, the next question, we're going to start with Andrew here. We have a couple questions on data centers, so I'm going to read them both. One is that considering that we've practically killed solar power in Delaware County, is there any possibility that data centers built in this area could operate using clean, renewable energy? And someone else asks, what's your opinion about data center development in Indiana relative to water, energy, land use resources?
The first question is absolutely not. I don't think that that is logically possible. And the second question, again, I'm sorry, was?
What is your opinion about data center development in Indiana relative to water, energy, and land use resources?
First of all, I think we need to have we're going to have data centers in Indiana. There's no question about it. The question is how we're going to address them and how we're going to receive them. And I think the most important thing is to have, ideally, an approach of 2/3 renewables in this state and 1/3 data centers. And I think with advancements in technology, hopefully closed loop systems, data centers will not gobble up as much water as they do. But this is an ongoing, evolving technology that we need to be mindful of, but I'm not in favor of a robust data center policy in the state of Indiana.
Okay, I already forgot the second half of the question, so I'm gonna just do the first. No data centers. They, in Indianapolis, Decatur Township, they just voted to have a data center against the wishes of their citizenry, who widely opposed it. AI data, we're gonna have like another Flint, Michigan. Also because AI and data centers can only use clean fresh water, just like the auto factories in Flint, Michigan. It's going to be detrimental. I sat at the State of Muncie State of the Union address a couple weeks ago and was horrified that part of the future economy in Delaware County is a drone economy and a data-driven economy. It's bad for the environment. Yes, maybe you'll have 40 jobs in Decatur Township for the next 5 or 6 years, and then what? And then nothing. It's not sustainable. It doesn't help. It's bad for the environment. My time is up.
More questions that can't be answered in a minute. So the data centers, first of all, no, you can't have just clean energy. Basically, they use so much energy that the biggest one in the country right now is in New Carlisle, Indiana, and it uses the power of 60% of all the households in Indiana. We're talking about massive amounts of energy. They're using half of the energy total used in the state of Indiana. So no, you're not going to be able to just do that right off the bat with clean energy. They're talking about putting up nuclear power plants, which is a whole nother massive problem. But the water usage, when Andrew mentioned the closed loop water systems, that's making a system that to cool the water that cools the processors, kind of like your radiator in your car where it just keeps using the same water over and over. Well, the regulations in Indiana are, there are no regulations because we want them to locate here. So we need to put in regulations to force them to go to closed loop water systems. We need to force them to not put the electrical grid expansion on our electric bills.
The Musk's data center outside of Memphis, I read, is using the same amount of energy as 200,000 homes does. And they are relying on natural gas for those generators that are now right there, that they're using until they get it built. And then they plan on using natural gas and then maybe switching over to nuclear later is what they say. We know that they just deregulated a lot of the oversight of nuclear plants federally. So no, it's not going to be clean. I think setting some regulations is a smart idea because, as Andrew said, unfortunately, these are probably coming. I'm against all of them, and I don't see how a state like this can reliably fund them, and then also, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Well, again, it just goes back to an irresponsible legislature. These companies are wanting to locate here for one reason, and that's our water. That's probably our most precious resource we have in Indiana, because I burned out pretty much all the gas years ago, didn't learn a thing. And so now it's the water. And our legislature's done absolutely no environmental study at all. Thank God for our universities. That's another issue. We need to try to keep them out of the clutches of Republican legislators. But they're looking at 1 million gallons of water a day, and power needs that are not going to be good no matter how they do it. So also happen to be looking at the, I think it's UA 440. They're the pipe fitters, steam people, and I'm all about jobs. They've not taken a position on this. Usually when there's anything going up or any construction at all, the unions are right behind it. So I'm kind of watching that also and monitoring that. Thank you.
All right, so everybody spoke on that. So one note, if you are saying a sentence when they show you time, you can definitely finish your sentence. So please do. They're not that strict. Anne says she's not going to throw anything. Following that conversation, we have a couple other questions about energy. One asks, if data centers do spread across Indiana, would you support using nuclear in order to limit the impact on Hoosiers? That's one question. And the other says, what is your position on non-fossil fuel energy in Indiana, like wind and solar? So basically, what do you think about wind, solar, nuclear, et cetera, in 1 minute?
No, this is going to be a hard line no for me on this one. I oppose data centers, and I oppose, I forget, you guys. I forget what Indiana has been dubbed when it comes to nuclear. Again, first-time politician. I'm killing it up here. As far as fossil fuels, you guys are going to hate me by the time we leave here. You guys, I'm a vegan. I'm really into regenerative farming, and there are a lot of farms in Indiana, in Virginia, in Appalachia that are very successfully figuring out ways to make regenerative farming more affordable, to divest from big ag, and also to make local food accessible to local communities. So I'm all for investigating renewable energy and further investigating environmental impacts of wind farms. I'm all about solar, and I'm a gigantic proponent of regenerative farming.
You
keep asking these questions that aren't minute answers. Okay.
John, you're taking up time when you
I
say
know.
This doesn't count.
So let's talk about
yet.
nukes first. Let's talk about the nuclear. What they're talking about, they're not talking about traditional nuclear power plants. They're talking about what's called small modular nuclear reactors, which are about the size of submarines. Okay. There are several issues with those, not the least of which is that where do you get the coolant water for them? Because most nuclear power plants, you put them on Lake Michigan and the Atlantic Ocean. You don't put them in cornfields. Okay, there is not enough coolant water in a cornfield to cool a nuclear power plant. Okay, so there are several more things we could talk about with those, and not the least of which is that the Indiana legislature has voted to put 100% of the development for small modular nuclear power plants on our electric bills. Okay? All right, so when it comes to solar and wind, of course, I love green energy and stuff, but being out in the farming area, I would like to put solar panels on parking lots, like Walmart right over here, and places like that. Landfills, former factory sites, things like that.
Yeah, I'm all for solar. I would also suggest that there are lots of places in cities and in the rural areas that we can use those. Wind, I am also pro wind. Nuclear, I think I kind of made it clear on the last one. I am not for more nuclear sites. And a lot of it has to do with if we're going to have data centers and we're going to have nuclear plants, I mean, that's a lot of water, right? And in addition, it's, again, the deregulation that's happening from the federal level. We already don't think that they're super safe. And when there's even less people watching it, I mean, I don't see how that's going to be sustainable. So.
Yeah, what she said. I'll tell you straight out. I feel that with that Republican supermajority, I'm dealing with a bunch of little baby kids. Whatever whacked out solution they can come up with, they'll do it. Now we've got pocket nuclear reactors and drill baby drill mentality. So back to the power needs, we need to gradually phase out our fossil fuel plants and gradually move to alternatives like solar, wind, or whatever, whatever else is out there. I'm not particularly opposed to nuclear power, by the way, but like John said, this thing is just very, very problematic. So, yeah. So I guess that's my question. Phase out our fossil fuels. Don't just close them down. We need to make sure people have affordable electric bills, and that's really my priority. So.
Much of this is driven at the federal level, where we're going with energy, how we approach renewables, how we approach nuclear. I am not against nuclear. I think it's going to be a part and parcel with the strategy for our power needs from here to eternity. And it's still going to be a mix of petroleum. It's still going to be a mix of electric. But we need to work towards a plan that is a balanced approach. And that's a 40, 50-year plan. That can be done at the state level, but it's only as good as the federal government entering this space in a holistic way to really look at things. Now that sounds really Pollyannish, right? Because that's not what we see today. That's not what we see at all. But we have to fight, and we have to vote, and we have to change things, and it can be done. But this is a multi-pronged approach, and it's just not going to change overnight. But we need to be realistic about the future.
All right, so this question starts with you, John, right? Okay. We have a couple of questions on this. So on higher education. One is, how do you plan to combat the Republican agenda on university curriculum? And there's also, do you believe that it should be the state that decides what you should study, or in the case of university, majors? Okay, so I think I'm going to put it like this. What is your position on the recent bills that have eliminated majors where there are not at least 15 people graduating a year with that major, and eliminated majors, is trying to eliminate majors if people don't make enough money right out the gate? And so, what are your positions on that, and what would you do to help higher education?
All right, higher education. I'll just quickly give you my philosophy on higher education. Okay, I was a history and political science major at IU. And when I graduated and I was in my first job, which had nothing to do with either of those majors, and I took on the IT position, I'm sitting there with my new boss, and he says, John, what issues do you have here? And I said, well, I've never taken an IT course, and I'm taking over your IT organization. And he said, I've seen your transcripts. You did really, really well. And he said, I have no issue with you because you learned what you were supposed to learn, and that's how to problem solve. Okay, so my thing is like you could have any major you want in college, as long as that college is teaching you how to problem solve with scientific method, then you're going to succeed. And when we're talking about majors where we're only getting 15 kids, have to have 15 kids in a major to have that major, do something to attract more kids and quit running college majors down in the press so that you get kids who don't want to attend school.
Well, we all know people who have been personally affected by this, right? We've seen Ball State shut down the philosophy department. Philosophy is kind of what higher education has been based on, right? And to say that because you don't have as many majors or because you may not have the income earning potential, I'm wondering where these Republicans, their market economy, that they like to talk about, and capitalism, and everyone can, that the market takes care of itself. Well, it seems like they've decided what's important and what isn't, rather than letting their beloved market to take its toll. So. Again, I think that a well-rounded, educated person that it's more important than deciding how much are you going to make and you don't know. I mean, if you're taught to think, if you're taught to problem solve, then you can take that to a lot of different places.
Yeah, you got to wonder what kind of university eliminates the philosophy department, because right back to what Sara said, I kind of thought that's what universities were supposed to be about. But here's what we have to realize. With this Republican majority, they don't care about education. They don't care about education at all. You know what they worry about? They want job training, and they don't know the difference. So let me explain the difference between the Republican Party and me. I'm a huge fan of research simply for the sake of research, even if you don't know what you're going to do with it. So, I'm a big fan of education simply because, in John's case, didn't know what he was going to do with it. Although here he sits also. He's a good IT guy, and also a good politician. So, that's it. We need to get back to education and get off of job training. You get plenty of time for that. And I think John just kind of gave a pretty good testimony to that, too. So, anyway, time's up. I got to stop. No.
All right. There's kind of a precursor to this at the state level. The diploma track now is very different, and you need to decide early on as a student and parents exactly what track you're going to be on. And you know what? When you're a senior or halfway through your junior year, that track can't change. So you may be precluded from exercising the ability to go to higher ed. Not enough time to talk about that. On this particular issue, there's a commission. That bill that passed, it assigns a commission to study this question of what should or should not be offered at the diploma, at the degree level in higher ed. So I would highly suggest that all of you beat the doors down, use the phone, use your email to lobby your state legislature against this so that word gets to the commission that they ought not be playing around with something that's so foolish.
Okay, history or professor popping in. So this is, again, the result of a 40-year organizational effort by Christian nationalists, Heritage Foundation, Project 2025, this latest one. This is the one that worked because all of the pieces were in place. But all of this is in Project 2025. And so obviously I'm against it. I moved out here to only have to work one job at a university. And like the philosophy department, I work in a department that was targeted because we don't have many majors. I always hearken back to, I am a revolutionary at heart, and Reagan's education advisor, Roger Freeman, in the late 70s said, this is when they introduced even college tuition. He worried that we were at the risk of producing an educated working class. And so, like, you know, people laugh and they think it's funny, but if you look at everything that's happened, this is the result, is that we are creating a misinformed, uneducated working class, a future generation of citizens. It's pretty scary.
Okay, we have a lot of other issues on the table, but not a lot of through lines. So we'll start with how might you work to make healthcare costs cheaper or even free at the point of service? Sara.
At the point of service, what do you mean by that?
I think that's when you go there and you pay like right away, right? Like cheaper, like when you're going to the doctor or when you get the bill rate from the doctor. So not like dealing with how to make it cheaper for the insurance companies, but how to make it cheaper for people just to get, right? Okay, they're not nodding. They're not actually reacting, but that's what we're going to say.
Okay, well, I'm still sort of confused on that one. So, but if we're talking about directly dealing with the healthcare providers, I take it. I have a son who is on the med school track right now, and I've learned a lot about the fact that that they basically have not very many schools. They keep it. So that I think there are like 150 medical schools. We can't do that, you know, statewide. There's not much we can do about that. But I can say that the fact that we are not, that we are, you know, getting rid of abortion and getting rid of women's health care is keeping good medical students away from Indiana. So I think that's part of it, because we want to make sure that we're getting not only students who want to come to Indiana to get their education to become healthcare providers, but also then staying here and working for our healthcare companies in this state. And they're not doing that right now.
Okay. You want to improve healthcare, you go to a single payer system. And that's what you got to do. Right now, 1/3 of every healthcare dollar out there is spent chasing who owes whom what. I've never seen such greed crawl out of the woodwork in my life as when I went to private sector. I started dealing with private sector. I'm an RN. I did 18 years with the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'll tell you right now, the Department of Veterans Affairs is the best healthcare system in the world. And it's a totally socialized, single-payer system. So don't you listen to these for-profit healthcare companies where they overcharge you for substandard service. And all you need to do is do a quick look at the healthcare outcomes in other countries that spend maybe 1/3 at the most of what we get charged and get stuck with in this country. So that's what we need to do. If you do that, your care costs will come down significantly, and your health will improve significantly. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with healthcare for all and single payer, and I think that's good stuff. I don't really have a lot to add, but I would say something that I wanted to add earlier, another question, which somewhat applies, thank you. My wife always tells me I'm soft-spoken, is that we really need to look at taxes and what we put into our healthcare and such as investments. If we start thinking of them investments, we have a much deeper commitment and a much more involved stake in the process and the success of things. And I think we need to get around that notion that we're making investments in people. And that even speaks to the cold at heart, the calculated, those folks who really don't give a whip about others, that their investment, that their tax dollars can go to really help others, and in so doing, help everyone. So we need to get to that mindset as much as all. But I don't know, other than getting to healthcare for all, how we're gonna turn that corner.
Yeah, as you could probably guess, socialized healthcare, single payer. I'd also like to socialize the pharmaceutical industry and completely end private for-profit insurance because it's inhumane. And that is how I, Tanya Pearson, believe that we can make healthcare more affordable. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the big, beautiful bill and what it did to Medicaid. Medicaid cuts are going to hurt the counties in the 33rd District immensely. Close to a quarter of the people in all those counties are on Medicaid. And the reason why it's going to hurt us so badly is because the hospitals in Winchester and Portland, and then the one in Decatur, are all very, very much danger of being closed once the big, beautiful bill cuts take place at the end of 2026. And you're going to have 100 miles between hospitals, between Richmond and Fort Wayne. So what do? Well, the reason these hospitals, the reason that Medicaid is in such big trouble in Indiana is because Indiana's average healthcare costs are 30% above the national average, because we are allowing our healthcare corporations to operate as for-profit while they benefit from being nonprofit.
Okay, we have a few questions here on voting. One asks if you support ranked choice voting. One asks, would you support closed primaries? One is about redistricting, independent commission. One's on no excuse absentee voting. So what I'm going to ask, no, you don't have to write them all down. What I'm going to ask is, if you could enact voting reforms, what would be your priorities in enacting voting reform? And this starts with Phil.
Yeah, to begin with, I'd make it, well, I'm in favor of ranked choice voting. And what I would do is I would just make registering to vote and voting the easiest thing you have to do as a citizen in this country. That's basically it, just access to the polls. That would be my top priority, and including allowing people to register to vote on election day. So, in other words, you walk in the polls, my name is Phil Gift, I want to vote. They go, okay, sign here. And then they could take that to a committee, they have time to check it out, So, anyway, that's basically it, just access to the polls, I guess, to sum it up.
If I had my druthers, you would vote at 16. You would vote when you're in school and you're learning things and you're compelled and excited about being a part of the future. And I think that that would go a long way. That is, I think, pie in the sky. But I support ranked choice voting, certainly the ease of voting, what we provide to vote today is sufficient, right? Our license, our main ID, it's sufficient, and I think that would go a long way. I do think that getting young people around consequential questions earlier in their life, even before 16, where they're a part of the solution to something, especially in our schools, where they can make decisions, collective decisions together in a voting system manner, will get them to show up when they're 18 to vote more. Of consequential things, consequential questions, where we care about what young people think.
I would make election days a holiday. I would repeal things like the SAVE Act and other sort of voter suppression tactics that are couched in really obscure language in these pieces of legislation that are constantly being written. I'm a proponent of ranked choice voting. I certainly don't mean to insult individual progressive Democrats within the party, but the two-party establishment has failed horrendously. That's why we're in the position that we're in now. And so I'm also a huge proponent of inviting other minority parties in. I don't care what the party is. I know we've got libertarians, right, trying to create a socialist party, but we need more options, and we need more places for people to go if they are not strictly aligned with Democrat or Republican. There needs to be another space for those people, and ranked choice voting would solve that, but until that seems pretty far in the future. We need to make room for other parties, minority parties, to be able to participate in this process. It's completely unfair the way it is now.
Okay, a lot of the things here are good ideas, right? Ranked choice voting, although the legislature tried to permanently ban it this past year. And there are other things there that have been mentioned that are good. I like the idea of election day holiday. That would be at a federal level. If you want to get out of the two-party system, we have to change and get rid of the Electoral College, because that's really what holds that in place. That has to be done at the federal level with amendments to the Constitution. But one thing that I really, especially for Delaware County, that really, really irritates me is not necessarily the fact that you have to have a photo ID, but where you have to get the photo ID is on McGalliard, halfway between the mall and Tractor Supply, and there is no bus line that goes there, and there is no sidewalk that goes 2 miles down the road to get there, okay? If you live in Muncie and you don't drive, how do you get there?
All right, I also believe that ranked choice is the way to go. I also think that we need to extend the voting hours, like on election day. I know we have some early voting hours, but on election day, when most people go out, we need longer hours so that people don't have to, worry about work, and that they have time to get to the polls. I also think that we should use mail-in ballots, that everybody should be mailed a ballot, and those should be able to be dropped off or mailed. I think that if you're getting the ballot, delivered to you, that you're more likely to pay attention and realize, oh yeah, I'm going to vote, and it's much easier to do too. So those are the changes that I would suggest.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question before closing statements. And so this one would start with Andrew, right? Yeah. So what concrete steps are you planning to improve the lives of the people in your district and the people of Indiana? This person writes, not ideas, actions.
Yeah, well, one reason why I'm running is because I believe that our current state senator doesn't get around and know people and talk to folks. And you're in the legislature a minimal amount of time in the year. Now, I'm sure those days are long and hard, but when you're active there, it's really a minimal amount of time of the year. Being in touch with people on a very frequent basis, your local leaders, anyone who wants to commune about ideas, is something that our state legislators should be involved with people. And so I would be very much in touch with people and asking questions and being receptive to ideas.
Okay, wait. Okay. The first thing that I would do would be to take funds, reallocate funds from the criminal justice system, the police, public safety. This is where most of our money is spent, and yet people are not less poor or less addicted or more employed and safer. And again, this isn't an individual insult, this is an institutional problem. And so what I would do is reallocate funds and try to draft and pass legislation to move that money into community-based resources and mutual aid in Delaware and Randolph counties. And a lot of those kinds of spaces already exist. They just don't have the money that they need to do the work that they're already doing on the ground. So that's where I would start.
Okay, let's go. So education, eliminate vouchers, and get us, the government, out of curriculum development. Healthcare. They did pass a bill last year to start moving the nonprofits to be actually nonprofits. It doesn't take effect until 2029. Too little, too late. Do it tomorrow. Let's go. We talked before about using some of the surplus to do roads and broadband. Okay, let's talk about data centers. Regulate them. Let's talk about the nuclear power plants. Figure out a way to do it without charging us and raising our electric bills. Make our electric bills affordable by controlling both the data centers and the nuclear power ideas. Property taxes. Let's look at fixing the assessment values, like maybe do an average of 12 years so you can get a good and not assessment value and not deal with the spikes like we saw in COVID.
Graduated taxing. I think that the graduated income tax is the way to go. We could lower the lower income or the lower earning income and then increase the amount that is taxed on the high income earners. And then we can use some of that for education. I'm with the education also. I want to, like I said, I think that universal free pre-K is something that we need to do in this state. We're talking about everything that they're doing right now to dumb us down and to get a solid, good, strong foundation on kids. And then also, like I said, help families with childcare then, because that has become a real burden for people who have to find childcare, have to stay home, and then that puts a strain on all of their income and all of the few childcare facilities that will be left after all of these vouchers are taken away. 31,000 kids without it.
Thank you. I agree with Sarah, and I'm just going to build on that. I would get rid of sales tax. I would get rid of virtually every other tax, because I sincerely feel that the only fair tax ever levied on the American people is a graduated income tax. And do it on a scale where you, like you would, and I hate to use this because Republicans are always going, we got to treat it like a business. But, you look at what your needs are, and then you set your tax rate. And that's it. And everybody talks about high taxes. Just to give you some historical perspective, under Eisenhower, if you made over $250,000 a year, you were in a 90% tax bracket. Under Richard Nixon, in the 70s, if you made over $250,000 a year, you were in a 70% tax bracket. Now the highest you'll ever see is, like a 38, something like that. Less than that, probably 35. So anyway, that's it. And thank you for leading into that again, because that's when I got cut off on that funding thing. So.
All right, so before we close, a couple things. Make sure to check out our beautiful "We Welcome Our Immigrant Neighbors" signs in the back. The suggested donation is $5. So you have next week off, just like the Muncie school students. But please come back on March 30th for our final forum, which will feature congressional and Secretary of State candidates. Finally, thanks to all of you for participating in today's event, including those watching from home. Thanks to Peggy Lewis, Melinda Messinio, and Jennifer Rice Snow and the Electoral Politics Working Group. And a big thanks to our candidates. Let's give them a round of applause. Each candidate will have 1 minute to close, and then we're done.
And begin. Once again, my name is Tanya Pearson. I am not a politician, never have been, don't even necessarily want to be. What I do want to do is mobilize an alternative to the tyranny of the two-party system. Some great progressive Democrats that I will be voting for. I'm not asking you if you join a party, if you sign your name on my petition there, you don't have to vote for me. You're just creating another outlet, another avenue outside of the two-party system. 30 seconds. My platform is a socialist platform. I believe, and I've spent my life just caring about people and serving people the best that I can. Everyone deserves access to healthcare, shelter, education, food. This should not be contentious or radical. And for the people who say that we don't have money to do it, we do have money to do it. Whether that means using surplus funds, reallocating funds from the carceral justice system, we have money. And every other first world nation on the planet, including the one that we are at war with currently, has free healthcare and free education. Okay.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I'd like to thank Muncie Resists for hosting this incredible event. I wish that the Republican side of the House would have been here, but hey, whatever. The thing I want to say is that all of the issues you've heard tonight are not easy issues. They are very complex. I've getting ready to update my website with some issue things, and I just wrote a blog piece on data centers, and I go through and I run the test on it, and it's at a 10th grade reading level. So I go back through, and because they say make it a 5th grade reading level. I go through and I try to get it, and I got it at a 9.9 grade reading level. These issues are complex. They're very difficult. I've followed the legislature for the past few years, and I know what they're doing to us. We need to stop it. We need to stop them from hurting us, and we need to move on, break the supermajority, break the majority, and get some rule back. Get power to the people.
Yes, thank you, Muncie Resists, for the opportunity.
Wait, sorry, Sarah, I'm interrupting. You guys can clap after all of these, because you're also timid with clapping after somebody's final words, and
That's right. Their teacher told them not to. All right, now I'll say thank you, Muncie Resists. Thank you all for being here too. Again, I want to take what I've learned at City Council about what Muncie's needs are, and I want to take that to the state level where we might be able to actually make some real changes for us. Again, my main issues are raising that minimum wage and sub-minimum wage, attaching it or indexing it to the inflation. Our housing issue, our rental issue. We have so many renters in this town, not just students, but also our residents. And we need to tighten the regulations on our landlords. We need to make a change so that out-of-state landlords aren't buying up everything and then not taking care of the properties. We also need to respect our educators at every single level and let them do their jobs and trust that they know what they're doing without them having to fear political persecution. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Muncie Resists for hosting this great event. I'd like to thank the Unitarian Universalist Church for allowing us to use their space. And believe it or not, I don't have much to say, so that's good for a round of applause. Yeah. But again, back to just my major thing is strong public education and real democracy in the state with a a nonpartisan commission drawing legislative districts, and a legislature that acts like they're really interested in serving the people they're supposed to serve, and getting a real democracy in Indiana instead of just focusing on power grabs. So anyway, I thank you.
Well, thank you for tonight. It's been a delight to be here. It's good to look out at warm, friendly faces. I've got some information on the campaign and about what I've done in my careers. Okay, thank you. Anyway, we've. I want some time back. Thank you, thank you, and I want. Thank you. We've talked a lot about the ends of things, what we want to accomplish, these aspirational things, and those things are extraordinarily important. But the means with which it takes is sincere engagement, and we're going to have to engage the other side. And I'm an executive coach. I coach mayors, police chiefs, fire chiefs, nonprofit execs, and such, and I ask a lot of questions. But the one attribute that's most important for someone to be successful in a relationship is the ability is humility, to be humble, to put yourself in the right position to make the best use of the situation and create good outcomes. And that's what I would do as your public servant. Thank you.
Just remember that we still have, the mics are still on, and the Zoom meeting right now.
What about escrow accounts for renters? I know it will fly. Renters that the houses are deemed, unsafe.